seated and come to order. This courtroom is now in session.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
On the matter of the people of the state of California versus Jade Janks, can I have appearances, please?
Good morning, Your Honor. Deputy District Attorney Jorge Del Portillo for the people.
Good morning, Your Honor. Teresa Paul on behalf of the people.
And good morning, I'm Mark Carlos on behalf of Ms. Janks.
Good morning, Your Honor. Michelle Camacho on behalf of Ms. Janks.
All right, thank you. On behalf of probation.
Probation Officer Maria Young.
All right, we are here for probation hearing and sentencing. I have read and reviewed the probation report, people's sentencing brief, their 1203.01 statement, the defense's sentencing memorandum, and have been provided with several letters that the people believe will be read into the record. Is there anything additional the court should have considered on behalf of the people?
No, Your Honor.
On behalf of the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Do we have arraignment for judgment?
I do, Your Honor.
Any legal cause?
No.
Do you wish to be heard?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Your Honor, clearly, the court sat through the trial in this particular case. You understand Ms. Janks' position. She has maintained her innocence throughout this matter and continues to do so, and will move forward through the appeal process. Something happened on this evening, and it had a lot to do with her relationship with the victim in this particular case. There was a lot of trauma in Jade Janks' early life. We have outlined that in our sentencing memorandum for the court. There was some conduct between the victim and Ms. Janks in her teens, early teens, as well as some incidents which occurred after that. And those are the factors that basically went into play on the evening that Mr. Merriman died. Ms. Janks reacted in a way that was completely outside of the way she would normally act. She had, as the court is aware, she had family members that she could have called. She had lawyers that she could have called. There's all kinds of people that she could have called. However, she panicked under this reaction to the trauma that she had, and as a result, she did things which made her appear to be complicit in the death of Mr. Merriman. She is moving forward at this point, trying to put her life back together again. She looks forward to at least making herself valuable in the prison system, but once again will continue to pursue her appeal vigorously. So, and Your Honor, Steve Janks, Ms. Janks' father would like to be heard.
All right, people have any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Janks, you can come forward. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Your Honor.
Would you please state your first name and last name for my court?
Stephen Janks. My name is Steve Janks. I'm Jade's father. Jade and I left Texas and her mother when she was around 3 months old. I was a single parent and responsible for raising the most beautiful, happy little girl. She received all the love a child could want from friends and family. Jade has always been kind and loving to humans and animals alike. She could not bear to see anyone hurt or an animal abused. She has grown up. She had found love of design and business. The various jobs she had, she excelled in and was loved by her associates. She had joined my construction company when she was in her early 20s, and in no time developed my tile and stone design center. I was extremely proud father. She then branched out in her own design business and thrived. I held my head high as she proved to be extremely capable. She is dealing with today is totally unjust. Firstly, I can only imagine what she went through when she found out that Tom, her stepfather, a person she trusted, that she called Dad, was a sick, perverted individual. Not for 1 minute do I believe that Jade premeditated, planned, or would ever deliberately take a life. I do not believe her heart would allow that. Being the person I know her to be, she is my only daughter that I love dearly. All I can say is this fight is not over. I truly believe that an injustice has taken place. This case was not one on its merit. It was one based on an Oscar-winning performance by the DA, a true travesty. I can only hope that Jade has the opportunity to be released through the appeal process, where the facts are reviewed and judgment is based on the reality, not assumption or a DA's performance. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Carlos, anything additional?
Ms. Janks would like to say what else, Your Honor. You want to do that last?
She can be heard this time. You can remain seated.
Tom came into my life when I was just a little girl and exerted influence during that early stage of development when I was still figuring things out. Unfortunately, that influence manifested itself into appropriate touch, coercion, reckless behavior, and complete violation of what I now realize is years of psychological manipulation. All of this came crashing down on me when I found hundreds of naked photos of myself in his computer and felt shattered. I'm still picking up the pieces, and it's my sincerest hope that over the next few years, I can put the pieces back and heal from this trauma. I'm sorry I didn't act the way I was supposed to that day. I think about it every day since. And to Tom's family, I understand you hate me for what you believe I did to Tom. However, there's a lot more than you'll ever understand. Thank you.
All right. People wish to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, what sets this case apart from others is the amount of time dedicated to planning Tom's death, captured in real time by the defendant's smartphone. Her thoughts, her feelings, her deliberations, all captured by her phone. From the moment she discovered the photos, she began planning, never reaching out to friends, never reaching out to family, never reaching out to Tom's landlord or even to Tom to confront him. Those were options she considered for 8 days and 8 nights, and she chose against it, and she chose murder. She made the personal choice of murdering Tom, and it was captured on December 30th, 2020 at 12:04 p.m. I struggle with moral issues, yet I will not be looking over my shoulder. So I made the call. What does that mean? Quote, it means everything you think it does. It means that she was going to lull Tom into a false sense of security before she sprung her trap. It meant that when she picked up Tom, she was going to make sure to appear loving to the nurse, Devin Ward. It meant that to secure his trust, she was going to buy him alcohol and chocolates before she drugged him with painkillers and sleeping pills. It meant that she was going to care for him so that she could kill him. Once he was knocked out, sleeping, and helpless, she still could have pulled back. When Alan Roach was telling her that he wasn't coming, she could have abandoned her murder plot, yet she continued. When Brian Solomon showed up and ran away after she asked him to strangle Tom, she could have abandoned it then, but yet she continued. She was implacable. Nothing could stop her. Especially not after Tom opened his eyes, only to see the world out through the inside of a grocery bag or a pillowcase or both. And we know Tom was waking up because she said so in her own words. Not during her testimony, but in her text messages. He's very aware right now. I'm on my own. And when the drugs were wearing off and the bag wasn't killing Tom fast enough, that's when she got close and personal and strangled Tom to death. After trying to get her friend Adam to move the body and stage it to look like an overdose, she buried Tom in the driveway like a piece of trash. And now she's attacking Tom and her father as well. In her probation interview, the defendant said, quote, they twisted so many things about what I said. And both on cross and direct examination, she had ample opportunity to explain her words in those text messages, what she did. And what was twisted about her testimony was how she twisted the truth. She twisted the text message, "I just dosed the hell out of him," to "he dosed himself." And the jury rejected her twisted tales for the unreasonable and incredible testimony that it was. Now, what's twisted is the plot that she hatched to kill Tom, where she decided to be Tom's judge, jury, and executioner. What's twisted is dosing someone so that they're defenseless and vulnerable. What's twisted is suffocating someone with a plastic bag over their head, watching them squirm as they gasp for air, referring to them as a kicking body in her car. What's twisted is the defendant strangling Tom with her own hands in the back of her car while he had a bag over his head and was paralyzed from the dose that she gave him. While no sentence can bring back Tom, we ask the court to impose the only just sentence in this case, 25 years to life, and give Tom's family and loved ones a sense of justice. Now, we want the court to end with the people's statement with the victim's family, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Fong. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I mentioned, there will be 5 family members and friends, family and friends. The first one to speak is Mr. Patrick Flanagan.
Excuse me.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Sir, would you please state and spell your name from the court?
Patrick Flanagan, Patrick, Flanagan, Flanagan. Good morning. My name is Patrick Flanagan. I am the CEO and co-founder of Butterfly Farms and Luca Michaela Nursery. Tom and I were partners and friends for over a decade. I met Tom sometime in 2009 or 2010. I was looking to lease some property in Vista to start a nursery. I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur, and it was just an idea I had. And then looking at the property and meeting with the landowner, I was introduced to Tom. And Tom was the other tenant on this 5-acre parcel. He was already there and established and selling palm trees. And Tom was described to me by the gentleman who owned the property as very intelligent, very hardworking, very compassionate about his work, and also he talked a lot about the customer service that he received and when he met Tom and bought palm trees from Tom prior to Tom even coming down there. So those two had a relationship. And in the first year or two, I struggled to get my business off the ground. I had some health issues. I was run over on my bicycle by a car. I had just put some equipment, and I had some tractors and trucks and things like that I kept out there. But I wasn't open for business, and I really was struggling with my health because of the injuries that I had received. And I had already signed the lease, and I remember going to the farm one day, and I told him, I'm done. I can't do this. I need to just sit at home and heal from these injuries. And so I tried to back out of my lease, and I had to meet with Tom and the property owner at that time, and they said, don't worry about it. Your stuff's safe here. Go home and heal. Don't pay rent. Don't come back here. Don't just heal and come back. This will be here for you. And so I reluctantly did that. I left, and I was gone for approximately 6 months while I healed. Doctors thought it would take longer, but I healed quicker, and I got back to work. And when I got back, I found all my equipment in perfect shape. And Tom was there, obviously, and he was really interested in where I'd been and what had happened to me. And I started to spend more time at the farm every day, pretty much 7 days a week. I had another business I had started, but I was already looking to sell it, and I really wanted to spend my time at the farm after I had healed from my injuries. It was a great environment to be outside all day, and I felt like I could get stronger by doing the hard work that was needed to get my project off the ground. And as I worked to get my project off the ground, I spent more and more time with Tom, and I realized that Tom was very intelligent. The way it was described, he was very hardworking and very intelligent and willing to be there 7 days a week. And that became a very motivating for me to look at and decide to partner. The two of us agreed on a partnership. Each of us brought certain things to the table. Tom brought a contractor's license. He was bonded. He had an extensive knowledge of the industry. I had my skill set, and he had inventory, so it seemed like a perfect match. So we started the nursery business together at that point, and that was sometime in 2010. And as we developed the business and opened up to the public and started to sell things to the public, one Friday night after we had closed, we had a kitchen and a fire pit, and you could live on the farm. In fact, some people did. Tom and I didn't. But we're sitting around the fire and having a beer and talking about the project and what we foresaw of what we were going to do. And we talked about the fact that we needed to get more traffic. We were looking at ideas of how we could get more people to take notice of us. There's a ton of nurseries in Vista, and our point of differentiation just wasn't there. So we talked about that. And Tom or Robert, the landowner, one of the two of them brought up this idea of butterflies. And my head immediately went to the hummingbird display at the San Diego Zoo. As a kid, I spent a lot of time at the zoo, and that was one of my favorite parts of the zoo, was the hummingbirds and going in that cage and watching the hummingbirds fly around. And in my mind's eye, what I saw was I replaced the hummingbirds with butterflies, and I thought, hey, that's a really cool idea. No idea what that entailed or envisioned, but I went along with it. I thought that was a great idea. And Tom very quickly made an appointment for us to go down to see the monarch program. They had been doing monarch butterfly conservation work in Leucadia for 25 years. Our kids had all gone there on field trips. In fact, I was supposed to go on a field trip with my daughter, and we had gotten rained out, so I knew the property, the facility. So I took that opportunity to go with Tom to meet this gentleman that ran this place. And when I went there, I was both intrigued and sad at the same time, because I saw that there was a huge opportunity missing. They were teaching kids in a very archaic manner with old slide projectors. The facility was rather dirty. The gentleman that ran it seemed a bit off. So I saw a huge opportunity, and we left, and I talked to Tom about it, and I said, I can see what we're talking about here. I could see it. I could see the business plan. I could see the logo. It all just sort of appeared to me. And then Tom and I got back to the farm, and we very quickly, we brought on another board member, and we filed with the IRS for our 501c3 certificate so that we could run as a nonprofit. And but even while that was pending, we went to work. We wrote the business plan, and we started to build out the infrastructure to do the work, which was to display butterflies and offer education. We had to write the curriculum. There wasn't anything out there. And Tom was just like, the people like that don't come along very often. Somebody that's willing to work for nothing to start something that is just a dream, and there is no guarantee that we were going to go anywhere with it, except maybe just down the drain. But we were lucky. We were next door to an elementary school, and as soon as the curriculum was written, I went next door and I talked to the school, and I said, hey, this is what we're doing next door. And they're in elementary school, and they said, that's fantastic. All of our second graders need that education. That's a component of this year's education for these kids, so we'll bring them over. And it was just an awe-inspiring day to watch those school kids walk over from next door. Literally, we shared a fence. They walked over. We could walk them. We could hear them walking down the street, and they filtered in. We had built an outdoor classroom with electronics, and we had written the program. We sat them down, and we delivered our first educational workshop. That day was about 90 students, and that would have been about 2012. And that's really where it began for Tom and I, and we took that and we did that day after day, 7 days a week for nearly a decade before Tom died. And you know, Tom and I, during that time, working 7 days a week, long, hard hours, both of us found a lot of similarities. We were both raised in large families. We were both raised in the church. We had strong parents. I found Tom, from what I saw, Tom had a good moral compass. I felt like I had a good moral compass from our upbringing. And we discussed things. I went through a very contentious divorce. He had gone through, obviously, a divorce. We had a lot of similarities, and we spent so much time together, often at, you know, either in an office that was about 60 square feet or at a picnic table that we shared. So we became very close. In fact, he became an extension of my family. He knows my kids. He was invited to all of our family functions. I have 3 sisters that live very close. We're all very close. Tom was always invited to Thanksgiving, Christmas, any occasion that we had. Tom was always invited. And likewise, I feel like I was close with Tom's family, which was Cash, basically his son. Cash was always at the farm. Even as a child, he would come with friends who drove. Then when he got a car, he would drive himself there. And we eventually gave Cash a job, and I became quite close with Cash, Tom's son, as well as Tom became very close with my 2 kids. And you know, this was really hard. This is a pain that just is never going to go away for me. You know, when Tom passed away, one of the first things that happened, because of our unique business that we had set up, I had to get out of the contracting business. I can always go back and I can get my own license, but at the time, having to take over the role of 2 people, it's not, the time isn't there, and I've had to go in a whole different direction because of the loss of Tom. But we had projects that were in progress that I had to finish contractually, and then the projects that were booked out, I just had to let them know that we wouldn't be able to do that work for them, and I let the contractor's board know that Tom had passed away, sent him a copy of the death certificate, and let the bond company know, and I had to lay off all those people that worked for us, building the infrastructure. What we were building was infrastructure for butterfly people, and it's very important work, and it's very specialized work. I don't know anybody else out there that is doing it. And you know, I sat through this trial and I heard the testimony, and from the day that Tom went out, Tom had told me November 15th of 2020 that he was going to have a procedure done, and he said that it was December 1st. I remember that he said that he was going to be out for 2 or 3 days, and I said, it's perfect timing. Our season ends around November 1st through November 30th, depending on the weather. It's a very seasonal business, depending on the weather. And that year we were going to close November 15th. I said, it's perfect timing. You know, you take as much time as you need. He had always been there to back me up. There was no way I was going to rush him. There was no importance to it. I said, take as much time as you need. And in my head, I thought, a couple weeks at most. And so he left. That last day I saw him was that last day of November. And I said, do you need a ride? Do you need any help? Is there anything I can do? George, our security guard, had the same conversation with Tom. Do you need a ride? Do you need any help? Tom said no. And for both of us, that's the last days we ever saw Tom. But we talked to him. I talked to Tom throughout the month of December. I talked to him almost every other day via text. and even some phone conversations. When I got the message that something that had happened to Tom on that last day of December, I remember I think I got an email from one of his brothers. It was a bit cryptic, and it just said, "I'm trying to understand what happened to Tom." And at that point I'm thinking, did he not know that Tom had gone out for the surgery and then all these other things that happened, or was he talking about something even deeper than that? And it was really early in the morning. I'm up quite early, 3:30 or 4. And so instead of getting on the phone and calling people, I Googled Tom's name, and what came up were all these overnight reports about Tom's death. I was shocked. I was just shocked, because in that entire month, when Tom went out, and I was expecting him back, it was probably a couple days into him having been gone that I heard from him, and he sounded terrible, and he told me that he had gone to get this procedure done, that his stepdaughter had picked him up and taken him, and that she had given him a Klonopin. And I remember I was sitting at my sister's house when we had this conversation. I had to Google it, what that drug was, and it seemed so contrary, because Tom had had a lot of medical issues in the time that we had been together. He was seeing doctors all the time. He took it very serious. I saw medication in the office. We worked in a 60 square foot office. The medication and his devices were always there. I drove his truck. His medicines were in the truck.
Stop for a moment, because he counts the sidebar. Mr. Flanagan, you can continue, sir.
And I understand you want me to wrap this up, but I do want to read some things. So much was talked about in here about.
Sir, I just want to hear how his death affected you. You had close business, laid people off, that type of information.
And
would be appropriate for this.
Okay, understood. So when this trial started, our lease was up, or was coming due. And after years of having a very good relationship with the board of directors that owns our property, when the allegations came out that were made here about the pictures, we were evicted. So the business at this point is closed. So I've laid everyone off, everything's in storage. We're in negotiations to build a new space, but I'll have to seriously consider what I have the ability to do without Tom. And so, yeah, this has been devastating, not just to me, but to all the people that look to Tom for answers for the work that we were doing. And I'll leave it at that. There's other people that want to speak today as well.
Mr. Flanagan, thank you, sir.
The next person to speak, Your Honor, is Mr. Frank Modic.
Hi, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Frank Modic, Frank Modic, and I am a recently retired hospice chaplain for Silverado Hospice here in San Diego. Part of what a chaplain does one of my duties is how to bring emotional and spiritual support for people at the end of their life, and also to figure out rituals that'll help them celebrate that life and honor the person that passed away. I met Tom and Pat probably about 10 years ago when I was starting to raise butterflies on my own to help, to see if that would help with my patients and with rituals. And I'd just like to read 5 very short examples of how Tom helped me reach out to my patients and also to the community. Tom was kind and funny and professional and always found the time to share his knowledge with me about butterflies and the plants needed to make them thrive. Tom provided me with education to select the right type of butterfly, because what I wanted to do was be able to take a butterfly and set it on the finger of one of my patients that was dying and let them understand that they still were connected to nature and they still were someone to look after and care for. Also, Tom, at times, a family would call me in the morning and say, "We'd like a butterfly for a ceremony to honor our relative." But this was the last minute and I didn't have any butterflies, so I'd call Tom and I'd get a butterfly. About 4 years ago, there was a devastating fire in a little town called Paradise up in Northern California. And because I have relatives that live there, I wanted to do some type of a ceremony to help the healing process. So I talked to Tom, and he said, "Well, you might have problems moving plants and butterflies across county lines." So he helped me negotiate all those obstacles so I could take a little plant up north so people could plant it for butterflies to help their healing and their process when they were grieving over the loss of their homes and the lives up there. And the final little example is that during the beginning of COVID, Tom and Pat had created this sanctuary in Encinitas where you could come where everything else was closed and learn about butterflies and also learn about the plants to help bring those butterflies into their yards. And the final point about what Tom did, I think, is just about me. That sometimes when you're working in hospice, you have a rough day with a person that's going to die in the next few days or weeks, and with their family. And there's also times where a death really affects me. And so I was able to go there and had someone to talk to, someone to share what was going on. I always got a smile, a pat on the back, and it was able to help me recharge my batteries. Several times a month, I still remember Tom and wish I could drop by for a smile, to ask a question about plants or butterflies, or just to recharge those batteries that keep seeming to wear down as I get older. I believe my life is richer because I knew Tom, and I believe our community and my patients and their families are thankful for what Tom shared with me. But also I believe that San Diego is a little less cheery today than it could be because Tom was needlessly taken from us. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, sir.
Your Honor, the next person to speak is Ms. Carrie Wright.
Hi, my name is Carrie Wright, Keriwright. I met Tom about 9 years ago when Pat and Tom had their farm in Vista. I would go there often to buy plants. Tom would let me go in the back and pick the best plants for myself while he was helping other customers. When they moved the farm to Encinitas, Tom even let me use some of his new greenhouse space so I could grow my own butterfly plants while searching for a new location for myself. He helped me get started in the butterfly business. He's the reason I have my business today. If not for all of his help and advice, my business wouldn't exist. He was there every step of the way. We would talk or text often, and I would visit him at the farm. I raised some pretty amazing butterflies with Tom's help. Every day when I go into my garden, I'm reminded of Tom because most of the plants in my garden came from him. I think about him often and can't believe he was taken from us. He was definitely a local celebrity and helpful to so many people. I spent many days working around Tom. He was never intoxicated or on drugs. I don't believe the negative statements that the murderer made about Tom. I don't believe she murdered him for the reason she said she did. It's a killer's word against his, and he's not here to defend himself. He was always a perfect gentleman around me. He was smart, kind, generous, and funny. On New Year's Day, my boyfriend and I were riding bikes near the waterfront. It was winter, so I hadn't seen a monarch butterfly in quite a few months. But one flew right in front of me. I really took notice and even mentioned it to my boyfriend. Later, I tried to reach Tom to wish him a Happy New Year. I couldn't reach him, so I finally called his son Cash. Cash gave me the news that his dad was murdered. I think that butterfly was Tom saying goodbye. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Your Honor, the next person to speak is Tom's brother, Mr. Terrence Merriman.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Terrence Merriman, T-E-R-E-N-C-E, Merriman, M-E-R-R-I-M-A-N. I'd like to read a statement from our oldest brother, Tim, who was here at the trial, but unable to make it here today. Dear Judge Kearney, we never got to say goodbye. Our brother Tom was stolen from our family at 64 years old. Tom wasn't the only victim. There were many victims in this murder. While Tom is no longer with us, he leaves behind a son, a mother, a sister, and 3 brothers. In the same year following Tom's death, we lost our sister Kelly. Tom also had 2 sisters-in-law, 8 nephews, 4 nieces, an aunt, and 19 cousins. Tom had a business partner and an abundance of friends. We are a close family. Our parents had 8 children, 6 boys and 2 girls. Tom was the 3rd oldest and 2nd oldest son. While Tom was not perfect, he was human and made mistakes at times, like all of us. Tom was kind, generous, helpful, bright, energetic, fun-loving, industrious, inquisitive, studious, thoughtful, and witty. Tom never hurt anyone. He helped numerous others in many different ways, personal or business. In December of 1965, an event occurred that changed our family forever. My brother was in 7th grade and Tom was in 4th grade. We played in an empty lot across the street from our home with a friend and our 6-year-old brother Michael. When it was time to cross the street to go home, Michael was between the two of us. We were holding hands. Suddenly, our dog across the street ran up to the street, and Michael stepped into the street into oncoming traffic. Michael was struck by a car and suffered extreme bodily trauma. Paramedics were quick to the scene and rushed Michael to a nearby hospital. After 2 days in a coma, Michael succumbed to his injuries and died. Tim was 12 years old, my brother. Tom was 9. No parent should ever have to bury a child, regardless of age. While this was horrendous for our family, it made a lasting impression on Tom and brought Tom closer to us all. Tom was protective of his younger siblings and always looked after our welfare. As the years passed, Tom always kept in touch with his parents and siblings. Although living on the West Coast and the rest of the family lived in the Midwest or East Coast, Tom always made time to return and spend time with siblings and his parents. Our father passed away in 2018. Tom loved and admired our dad and kept in touch with him weekly. The last time I saw my brother was pre-COVID and the travel bans in 2019 when he returned to Ohio to visit our ailing mother. On New Year's Day 2020, Tim got a call from our brother, from me, asking if I had heard from Tom, and he said no. I told him Tom was missing and the authorities were trying to find him. Tim immediately thought that maybe Tom went on an excursion into the mountains that he loved to do and failed to tell anyone. A couple of days later, we were informed that Tom was dead, and they ruled his death a homicide. It isn't easy to describe what I went through and what I felt inside after receiving this news. I was numb to the news. It was all too surreal. This made no sense. This empty feeling went on for several months. I could not for the life of me know who could have done this horrific deed to our brother. Tom was humble and selfless and always had words of encouragement for others. In the following days, Brother Terry was the point guard for all the communication between San Diego Sheriff's and the District Attorney offices. While we understood an arrest was made, the two offices were limited in what they could share with our family about the case against the accused. We were told it might take up to 2 years before the case came to trial. Again, this empty feeling of not knowing or understanding what happened kept us numb. We kept asking, why did this happen? During the trial, we heard and saw the evidence the District Attorney's Office brought forth. We saw dozens of text messages, listened to witness testimonies, and saw pictures of our brother after they found his body. The images were hideous and made us feel sick. Our family needed closure on losing our brother, and we wanted justice for Tom. Once the trial went to the jury for deliberation, our family had closure. We are grateful for the San Diego County District Attorney's efforts, District Attorneys Teresa Pham and Jorge Del Portillo, the San Diego Sheriff's Department, the lead detective on the case, and the investigative team. Their commitment, diligence, and preparation for the work put forth for the arrest, trial presentation, and conviction helped our family to make sense of this atrocious event. Your Honor, we are asking for justice for our brother Tom. Tom did not deserve what happened to him. We respectfully ask you to help us deliver justice and to do what is right and good for Tom, his family, business partner, and countless friends. There should be no leniency for the convicted individual's selfish, planned, and brutal act. We ask for the maximum sentence that the law allows by you, Your Honor. Tom was a productive member of San Diego County and only knew how to do things the right way. My brother has touched the lives of countless individuals. We ask for justice so we can all live in peace and our fond memories of Tom be solace for our grief. Respectfully submitted, Timothy Merriman. Judge, I'd now like to read my statement to the court. Thank you, Judge Kearney, to allow Tom's friends and family to address the court today on how his death has affected us. We miss and love Tom. I want the court to know that this murder has affected many people. My nephew, Tom's son, is now without his mentor and protector. This, Judge, is the most devastating consequence of Tom's death. I am gravely concerned about his mental and spiritual health with the conditions the killer placed on him. Was that part of the plan? Or did a drug-addled lifelong criminal mind not consider that fact? Our aging mom has been kept in the dark about the details of her son's death. It's not an accomplishment to outlive your children. She didn't deserve this, Judge. And at least one person relapsed due to the fallout of the killer's actions. I want the court to know I have continued pain and confusion, and my mental, spiritual, and physical health has been affected. I've lost weight. I've lost 90 minutes of sleep in the last 2 years. I continue to suffer. I want the court to know that my brother Pat has lost his best friend. My brothers, Tom and Pat, were as close as two brothers could be. A classic relationship. Pat is one of the strongest people I know. He is still suffering. I want the court to know that Tom didn't deserve to die by the torture the killer put him through. I want the court to know the killer gave my brother an undignified death. I want the court to know that only a person Tom trusted would have been able to do this to him. I want the court to know that the killer's denial in the face of the insurmountable evidence against her hurts me. The quick jury deliberations certainly countered that. She's a liar, and we all know it. Indeed, Judge, the denial betrays her self-conscious knowledge that her actions were evil. I want the court to know I live with the guilt that I didn't do more to save my brother on the day he died at the killer's hands. A decent person would have used those hands to save a life by dialing 911. I want the court to know that these things haunt me. Why did she lie to me on the phone? Did Tom struggle at any point, or was he too dosed? How much did he suffer in the hours he had a plastic bag over his head? How horrible is it to die in that manner? At what point did he know he was under attack? Why did the killer not take him to emergency when she retrieved the wheelchair? When the killer pulled my dead brother from the back of her killing machine that became his hearse, was his skin cold to the touch? When the killer looks at her murderous hands, does she now know the blood won't wash clean? What sound did his body make when it hit the ground? Why did the killer treat my brother's body like trash? Imagine that's how you find your family member. Did that satisfy the killer? Why wasn't the killer charged with abuse of a corpse? Why put us through all this? I want the court to know that rumors leaked the killer, while on $1 million bail, was telling anyone who asked that Tom died of cancer. I want the court to know that the killer lied when her defense stated Tom and his son's relationship with her was anything but fractured. That photo they displayed was a canard, another lie. I want the court to know my brother may have possessed inappropriate photos, which is wrong. But there was evidence as such the killer had little ethical or moral concerns with disseminating inappropriate photos of herself. In the killer's own words, Tom never acted inappropriately. I want the court to know I'm disgusted with the defense intimating Tom had underage photos in his possession. Following that, I want the court to know an ambitious journalist published an article about how close Tom's business was to an elementary school. It's disgusting. I want the court to know that from this point forward, getting janked is what I'll refer to what happens when someone close to you kills you. I want the court to know that I will pray that if the killer dies in prison, the state will treat her remains more humanely than she did my brother. I want the court to know that our family is very close. All my brothers are great, but Tom was the brother with whom I'm most connected. I thought he possessed the closest character to my dad out of all of us. Our dad was a cool guy too, Judge. This is what I miss about my brother Tom. I miss his cool demeanor. I miss his loyalty. I miss his quiet confidence. I miss his perspective on current events. I miss his dry wit. I miss his independence. I miss his stubbornness. I miss his stoicism. I miss his genuine compassion. I want the court to know it is difficult to be compassionate to this troubled murderer. Judge, I want the court to know that we're blessed to get to see some of Tom's mannerisms and habits in his son. He's also tough and compassionate. The killer couldn't snuff that, and I am grateful. Tom's son has a strong network of cousins, aunts, and uncles to be there for him should he need support. Family will pull through. Judge, I want the court to know that in 7,756 days, 1,108 weeks, 255 months, or 21 years, I anticipate hearing the killer admit to the truth, should she want a chance at parole. The killer will be 64 in 25 years, the same age Tom was when she killed him. Finally, I want the court to know that our sentence is to relive this tragedy every Christmas and New Year's holiday. In my search for peace, I read where philosopher Blaise Pascal posited that, quote, all of humanity's problems stem from one's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Judge Kearney, please place this convict in solitary confinement each New Year to assure us that she's reminded of the pain that she's caused Tom's friends and family. Jade Sasha Janks deserves the punishment the state will impose on her. She won't be missed. Thank you.
Your Honor, the last person to speak is Mr. Patrick Merriman, Tom's brother.
Morning, sir.
My name is Patrick Merriman, M-E-R-R-I-M-A-N. I'd first like to thank the Honorable Judge Kearney the prosecution team, and the jury for their hard work in delivering a just verdict for the murder of my brother Tom. Tom was a son, a brother, a father, a best man, a mentor, a business leader, an entrepreneur, a co-worker, and a best friend. Tom was only 18 months older than me, and I always looked to him for advice when I could not figure out life's challenges for myself. We spoke regularly after graduating from college and visited many times throughout the years following. I would either fly west or he would fly east to wherever myself and my family lived. We spent a lot of time together. Spent many holidays together over the decades as well. His son Cash is like a son to my family. I think about Tom every day and wonder how and why this heinous crime was committed. Everyone I know loved Tom. Tom, excuse me. This is difficult. Everyone I knew loved Tom. Tom possessed a fantastic sense of wit. He was always the one person in the room who could acknowledge life's ironies while simultaneously using them as opportunities for both laughter and growth. Tom could see the forest, the trees, and every other lovely creature in life. His absence with us has, and forever will, dull life's landscape. When does grief end? Our family knows when it started, but we cannot fathom an end. Jade Janks willfully and maliciously took my brother's life. And this vicious travesty deserves the full force of our judicial, social, and conscious retributions. My hope is that this murderer remains constrained within the confines of our prison system for the duration of her natural life. Tom's loss stands as an incalculable entity, even with the faith in God and family strength will always shadow our lives. The jury's guilty verdict renders us the fairest platform for any healing to commence. We thank them in grave earnest. May God bless them for this terrible work, which brings us a just conclusion to Tom's grievous murder that we can hope for. And in conclusion, may Jade Janks find no peace in confinement, no rest in her hours, no false promise of forgiveness. It is because of her soulless actions that we must endure Tom's absence and will assiduously remember the evil she has perpetrated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything additional on behalf of the people? Anything additional on behalf of the defense?
Just the recommendation we made in chambers.
As to Mr. Terrence Merriman, I don't think, sir, that you should feel poorly about what you did. You did nothing wrong. You didn't do anything to cause this. You didn't do anything that anybody else wouldn't have done in your place. And there's nothing additional you could have or should have done. So please don't spend your time and your energy thinking about that. Just celebrate your brother's remembrance. As to this particular case, I do believe that the defense effectively and appropriately presented to the jury the provocation and mitigation that existed in this case on behalf of Ms. Janks. I do believe that the jury was appropriately instructed and considered the provocation. I think they considered the mitigation. And I think that the jury ultimately determined that it didn't justify Ms. Janks' actions. And therefore, they found her guilty of first-degree murder and I do believe that the evidence supported their conclusion. In this particular case, she is presumptively ineligible for probation pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203E3. I don't believe there are any unusual circumstances which would be appropriate for a grant of probation. Even if she were eligible for probation, I believe under Rule 4.414B2 that her prior performance was unsatisfactory and probation would not be appropriate in this case. Therefore, probation will be denied. She will be committed to the Department of Corrections for the term of the rest of her life in prison, with a minimum eligibility of parole date for 25 years from now. So in essence, 25 years to life. She will receive credits of 131 actual, 0 good time credits pursuant to Penal Code Section 2933.2 for a total of 131 days credit. She is ordered to pay a restitution fine in the amount of $300, an additional restitution fine in the amount of $300 to be stayed and remain so unless her post-release supervision is revoked. I will strike the court security fee, the ICNA fee. I will order that restitution be paid to the family in an amount to be determined at a later date by the court. I will also order that the Victims' Compensation Program be paid an amount of $2,690.40 pursuant to claim ending 924. All other claims will be reserved as well. Does she wish to waive her presence, Mr. Carlos, if there is a future request?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll indicate the 977 waiver. She is to submit to DNA testing pursuant to Penal Code Section 296. All fines, fees, and restitution to be paid forthwith or as provided in Penal Code Section 2085.5. Ms. Janks, you do have the absolute right to appeal from the judgment of this court. If you do wish to appeal, you must file a written notice of your intention to appeal within 60 days from today's date. An appeal not filed within that time frame shall be void and have no effect. The notice must be in writing and signed by you or your attorney or both of you. You must specify what you are appealing from, whether it's the judgment in whole or just a portion of the judgment. If you appeal and you don't have the financial ability to retain the services of an appellate attorney, one will be appointed to represent you. In that regard, it is your obligation to keep the appellate authorities advised at all times of your current address so they can be in touch with you to advise you of your appointed counsel. Do you understand? All right. Anything additional at this time on behalf of people?
No, Your Honor.
Anything additional, Mr. Carlos?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor,
Give the order. Good luck to all of you.
Your Honor, I apologize if I may ask for a restitution review 30 to 45 days out.
All right, you want to set one now, or do you want to?
I'd like to set one now, Your Honor.
All right, what day would you like?
If I may have 30 days out.
We have Thursday, April 6th available at 9 a.m.
Your Honor, I'm going to be in trial on that day, actually 4 weeks following that also. So April 6th through, that'd be like May. Can we get May? Good May?
All right, what day are you available in May?
About, can I get May 2? Second?
May 2nd, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll set it for May 2nd at 9 o'clock in this department. We'll indicate the 977 waiver. Anything additional, Ms. Vaughn?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Anything additional on behalf of the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I'll give you the order. Thank you.
Love you, my darling.